Well, I need a pompous blowhard who is completely devoid of any empathy or sympathy for other people's plights, and yes, is a narcissist. Needs to have a grey beard and probably grey hair. Let's save ourselves a bit of money on makeup. Oh, look, Shaun Micallef.
Well, hang on. There's an animal in the back of shot, so I don't know if you're aware that there's an animal crawling through your home.
Oh, okay. I don't know who that is. I've had a theory, long-held theory about empathy. I actually think it gets in the way, to be perfectly honest with you. You're often in a kind of inflatable bag of ice,
Yes.
Soothing your hips, as I recall. You were the perfect audience. You couldn't leave the room. Is this the podcast, or have we started yet? I never know with these things. There's a famous quote from Chekhov is that if you bring your bottom onto the stage in the first act, then it has to fart by the third act. There are only 2 jokes that they vetoed at Channel 9, and we have to remember, Osher, that I was never asked to do it again.
Hello, Mr. Micallef. Good morning, Shaun.
Osher, good morning. It's been a long time since we've spoken, and we have much to catch up on.
We do. It hasn't been too long since we cuddled, though. We cuddled quite recently, and that was nice.
Did we? When was that? I've forgotten completely.
At the Sydney Writers' Festival. How quickly you've...
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, you were in that queue.
You came out... you came out of the crowd, you gave me a cuddle. You so kindly, you sat and watched the thing that I was doing. And then I went to the signing queue afterwards, and you've published 11 books. I've published 2. And they put me in the signing table. It's like, there you go. And I looked to my left, who am I next to? Oh, it's Trent Dalton.
Ah.
Yeah.
He's pretty popular, isn't he? Yeah.
The 500 people in the line that circles around the room and back again are not for me? Okay.
Anyway, it's not all about you. It's not all about you, the Sydney Writers' Festival. I think
in those moments, it's never about me. Well, hang on. There's an animal in the back of shot, so I don't know if you're aware that there's an animal crawling through your home. A small white fluffy thing.
Oh, okay.
Walked past.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, so your home in Melbourne, I assume,
yes,
is just open to the wind, where wildlife just wanders in and out.
I assume it was a dog. Was it a dog?
It was.
Okay.
It was.
Is this the podcast, or have we started yet? I never know with these things. It's like it's very slow ramp, and I don't know whether we're in. Are we in now? Do I have to be in character, or is it just you and me talking before we actually go?
I don't know. I'll let you know what I think after a little while when I want to start.
Do you edit this or not?
Why?
Do you cut out all the guff? Or is that the gold? I don't understand the rules.
Well, I would say to you, Shaun Micallef, that in the same way that Anton Chekhov was the first person to put the guff into a stage play, the waffle is the thing that makes the podcast the most intimate form of broadcasting. Great.
I can tell we're on now because you've got your performer's voice on. I know where I am. All right, let's begin. What do you want to know? And I got to admit to you that even though we know each other in the hothouse that was Channel 7's Dancing with the Stars, we got to know each other quite well, quite quickly. And that's, it's the kind of the way of show business. But I would say yes if you asked me to be on your show. But if it was anybody else, I'd be worried because I got a feeling that you're going to want to ask me about my feelings about things. And I'm never very comfortable doing that.
That's okay. That's okay. These things, in the same way that Chekhov's work always revealed the subtext of what was going on amidst the conversations about dinner, I'm sure that through the subtext of our conversation, we will figure out how you feel about things.
I'm picking up on your cues. Yes, I should mention the fact that I'm in a play by Anton Chekhov called Uncle Vanya, and it's on until the 22nd of August at the Melbourne Arts Centre.
Yes. Now, as someone who's kind of been adjacent to the world of acting, I've done it once, and I played myself in an episode of Neighbours.
How'd you go? Were you convincing?
I was. Actually, no, I've done it twice. I played myself in an episode of Neighbours, and I played myself in an episode of Offspring.
I think it's harder to play yourself than it is to play a character. I think you gave yourself the most difficult task as an actor to strip away, I guess, any mask or character. Although, how much of you is mask and character?
Considering my recent neurodivergent diagnosis, probably most of it.
Oh, really? I didn't know you'd been diagnosed in this way.
No, I didn't. I was just trying to look for answers as to what's going on. How come everyone else is able to do this stuff? Like, cry, when sad news happens, and I just look at them and go, okay, a person died. What happens now?
Yeah, but is that a bad thing? I mean,
It's made me quite
good.
good at my job, which has been, for the most part, destroying the dreams of singing stardom or romance of thousands of people.
Well, so you don't have to work on it. It's just something you know, and you go, yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew I couldn't be a human being in any
But
real
I am
sense.
a human being. I do feel the empathy, but it just forms in a different way. You don't really get to see it from the outside.
I've had a theory, long-held theory about empathy. I actually think it gets in the way, to be perfectly honest with you, because empathy is to be caught up in someone's, like, so if someone is sad and tells you a sad story about why they're sad, then you feel those feelings that the person's imparting to you, and you may weep along with them, and that's, I guess that joins you together in that moment, but you're no help at all. I mean, you need to be, if you're an advocate, say, for somebody's misery, then you need to be able to divorce yourself from their pain, and you need to go and deal with it. If you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're anybody who's going to be of any use at all, I think you need some sort of dispassionate enthusiasm for the solving of their problem. And so therefore you are well equipped. You're in the wrong business, my friend. You should actually be a surgeon.
Both my parents were doctors. And
there you go. Well, that's where you get it from.
So there is a running theory that while the neurodivergent diagnosis does hold, there may be something else going on, but we'll work. That's the first hypothesis of what's happening. But I did want to. So you are acting, which not now, but when you are on this stage play.
Yes.
I know who Anton Chekhov is, but I would like to know from you, Shaun Micallef, what is it that draws you towards a well-known Russian firearms and fireplace enthusiast?
Yes, well, you're quite right. You do know your Chekhov. Chekhov, of course, was a doctor. We were talking about doctors earlier. Chekhov actually did qualify as a doctor. And in Uncle Vanya, there is a doctor character by the name of Astrov, and he's a very cynical man. He's a very cynical man who sees in the scheme of things the pointlessness of trying to save people or put them back together. And so he decides to absent himself from those worries and wearies and devote himself to forests and making life better for future generations, as nothing can be done in the present.
So this is the play from the 1970s then?
This is from the 1890s. This is isn't it amazing? It's from the 1890s, and even then there was a conservation theme running through it. But Chekhov, of course, didn't devote his life to forests. He devoted his life to writing plays, in a way, I guess, investing in future generations through his written words. So I read that character as being pretty much Chekhov. And one thing I have learned, which I didn't know before I did this play, is that he's very, very difficult. It's a very difficult play to get right, because the comedy and the tragedy, it's not a question of sort of stopping one and starting another. They both exist in the same moment if you play them correctly. And that's the challenge, is to try and do both at the same time.
He was the first guy to really do that as a playwright. Things were very on the nose. They were very spelled out. The audience needs to have their hand held and being explained to why this person's sad. But from what I understand, with the Chekhov playwriting, he was the first storyteller to kind of go, no, you find something really funny when you're at a funeral, or like someone will fart in the middle of being told they've lost a job, or like it happens at the same time, and no one had really got their head around that.
There's a famous quote from Chekhov, is that if you bring your bottom onto the stage in the first act, then it has to fart by the third act.
That's written in stone somewhere on a mantelpiece.
Yes.
I do believe. The trick, though, with Jit, I want to know. I haven't seen the production. I'm in Sydney. Is it in the? Do you affect Russian accents, or like how do you play that? Do you do the thing they did with the TV show Chernobyl, where everyone just speaks in a very broad old English accent? How do you do it?
Well, because we're playing it in Melbourne, we thought that doing it in Russian, the Russian language would be challenging. But doing it in the accent too, because if you think of what the Moscow Arts Theatre would have been like in the 1890s, people would have gone along. They wouldn't have heard the Russian accents of the Russian actors because you just don't hear your own accent. So that was a thing that was decided. Well, I don't think it was even considered that we would do it in Russian accents, because it just creates a little barrier that we have to process in order to get to the play. It's like when you see anything with an American accent done in Australia, you have to take that into account and then go through that door and get into the play. So the idea was to remove as many barriers and thin gauze and curtains. Indeed, the production has no tabs. They have no curtains. There's no curtain that goes up. There's no tabs on the side. We see the wings. We see the back doors. The theatre, it's very Brechtian in its sparseness in terms of its art department. But that design that is in there, there are some trees that look, for all intents and purposes, like real trees on the stage. And there are little bits of houses. And the costumes are very Russian. But we are very Australian. In fact, the adaptation of Chekhov's work has been done by Joanna Murray Smith, who's a wonderful playwright in her own right, but she has adapted this to the Australian idiom and vernacular.
The idea of Serebyakov is the...
Well, you may be right. I've been saying Serebryakov.
That's you're in it, so I'm going to say Serebyakov.
But I don't know. I'm playing the character, so I don't have to say my own name. It's just on the dressing room door. It says Serebryakov by Shaun Micallef, and I'm assuming it's Serebryakov. But
I think you're right.
I wouldn't assume that. But I've just been saying that, and through sheer force of repetition, others have been doing it too.
Unfortunately, I've never seen Uncle Vanya. But from what I know about Serebryakov, Jonathan. From what I know about Jonathan,
Alexander.
Alexander. From what I know about Alexander, he, as I was describing earlier, he might be just a bit unaware of what people are going through around him, and somewhat of a possible narcissist as the world explodes around him. How did you find your way to that kind of thing? You and I have spoken at length about the kind of personalities that find themselves in leadership positions. This guy's a professor. Were you drawing on some inspiration, perhaps, from people who just can't understand why the poor people are so upset?
Well, I think my ability, assuming I have any, to play this character comes from the fact that Anne-Louise Sachs, who's the director of this production, thought to herself, well, I need a pompous, blowhard, who is completely devoid of any empathy or sympathy for other people's plights, and yes, is a narcissist, needs to have a grey beard and probably grey hair. Let's save ourselves a bit of money on makeup. Give me the show cast. Oh, look, Shaun Micallef. So I'm kind of just playing a toned down version of myself.
Toned down is kind of you to do that for the people.
He's the old guy. He's the old guy in the production. He's the disruptor. I like the role because there are not many lines. I'm only on for a few scenes, but when I'm not on stage, everybody's talking about me. It's a perfect role. In fact, it probably should be called Serebryakov instead of Uncle Vanya.
Is it one of those things where you can fuck off before the thing is finished, or do you have to be there for the end?
I have to be there for the curtain call. There is a production next door, and I found that if I hurry, I'm off stage on Uncle Vanya, and I can go on for the curtain call in this other production, and then I can get off stage for our own curtain call. So some audiences for Mackenzie have been a little bit bemused to see this 1890s Russian gent come on and take a bow, but only the second bow. So if it's a good show for them, and they come out and do their second bow, you get to see Serebryakov. So if you can't see the show, ladies and gentlemen, if you can't see Uncle Vanya, don't have time, go and see Mackenzie, because there's a chance I might be there as well.
And then really go off, because they do have curtains in this one. So they'd go absolutely off. So if the curtain comes up a second time, then you get a glimpse of one. And it's that moment there, because when you described to me earlier, there's no curtains, there's no wings, there's no tabs, you can see the door. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what's Shaun Micallef going to do with no fourth wall to break? Like it's, you're, and we've spoken a bit about this. Your dismantling of the very universe that upholds the work you're trying to do has been something that I've been inspired by since I first saw you on the telly. And then, the times that I've got to meet you, I just can't believe what I see. It's extraordinary. And I wanted to know, when did that first start happening for you? Was that when you were doing the university review stuff? Was it when you started in the telly?
I think probably, look, on stage, I mean, the fourth wall, I guess, is always broken as soon as you start a soliloquy, or if you break the moment the character to wink at the audience or look at them or to deal with something that's gone wrong. So doing that on television, I guess, was second nature, because that's my training was always to do that, to talk to the audience directly. And mercifully, like most of my work has been down the barrel, as it has been for you, where you have an intimate relationship with the home audience, probably a less intimate relationship with the studio audience, because they're watching you on a monitor talking to the home audience most of the time. And someone very early on, when we were doing Full Frontal, said to me that I think it was Glenn Robbins, said, look, the best characters to do are the ones that talk to the home audience. I mean, it's all very well to be in sketches where you're playing characters talking to other characters, but you are being observed talking to somebody else. To actually talk to the home audience is the best way to build a relationship, which is absolutely what Glenn Robbins did and has done and continues to do in his career. And I thought, oh, well, he knows what he's talking about. I'll take a leaf out of his book. But it wasn't a stretch. Like, it was something I did instinctively.
It's something that I have always loved watching you do, and it's something that I have attempted very messily at first, but after a while was able to use it sparingly and effectively, which has been a delight when you get to work with a director who's willing. Hang on, I think my camera's just shut off for some fucking reason. One sec. Stand by. Have you lost me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, but you can't see me.
Oh, you're a test pattern at the moment.
Yeah, stand by. This is
That's all right. It's a podcast. Don't people listen to these?
But they also watch them, mate.
Do they?
Yeah.
I died. What's happening with the world? See, I don't know these things. Oh, but you're back on now. I can see you jumping.
All right, there we go. I don't know why that happened, but
now, would you leave this in the podcast, or would you cut it out?
No, I would leave. I'd start to leave it in. I think this stuff is the stuff that I loved. When I was a kid, my dad worked at a radio station in Brisbane called 4EB. It was a different time, Shaun. The EB stand for Ethnic Broadcasting, and that was fine back then. And he would do the Czech program.
I did not. Has he got an accent? Your father?
My father learned English in Oxford from his friend who had escaped Prague before he did. And so my father spoke in this half Czech, half Oxford English accent. And as kids, and my mum spoke English as a second language as well. She spoke Lithuanian for the first part and German for the first part of her life, and then learned English in Adelaide. So, the Adelaide English is very different because they don't have the letter L. So when she then moved to London, they got these, I don't know what happened to the languages, but we learned English from those guys. So I had an accent from, now there's no longer a dog in your house. There's somebody else there.
This is Leandra.
Hello.
This
Hello,
is
do you know
Osher.
Shaun? This man's in your home. Are you aware of him?
Actually, I don't know who that is.
No, okay. Well, I hope things go okay for you, because you've got not only animals but also people wandering around behind you. You're very calm for someone who's just got strangers in their abode. But yeah, so I had an accent for the first 12 years or so of my life.
Can you still do it? Can you still do the accent?
It was a bit more British, and it had very round vowels. And I would dance, and I would prance, and it was very pronounced. And because my parents were very big on pronunciation when we were kids.
Well, I see no reason why you need to change the way you speak. I'm from Adelaide, and I say dance. That is the correct way to say that word.
I do not say H. I will say this. I do not say
no,
H.
don't. No, you don't. No, that's no.
No.
The aspirant H is to be avoided at all costs.
But I guess what I was saying is that the breaking of the wall when it comes to performance, if you overuse it, it can be a real problem. But I've always found it to be one thing, and it was largely from watching you do it. It was, I'm in on something. Me and this person here are doing this thing together, and we are playing with the world that exists here. And it's not, I get to feel a little bit naughty with them rather than I don't care about any of this, and this doesn't matter, or blowing out the accents of the other people in the room by suddenly dropping accent and then breaking character and coming back.
Yeah, I think you reach out to the audience and you take them by the hand. This is what every host should do, I think. You take them by the hand, you say, I think you'll really enjoy this. What's on the other side of this curtain? Come with me. You're safe. It'll be fun. Come and have a look at this. And that's what every show is at the beginning, I think. It should be. And if you're positive about it then that becomes infectious and the enthusiasm is shared with the audience. And, there's a bit of joy in that. Just in that act alone. I mean, obviously the act has to be reasonably good. Whatever's going on behind the curtain has to be worth seeing. Otherwise, they over time they won't trust you anymore. But it's the fun bit of the job, the beginning, when you take them into your confidence.
Being able to deconstruct and I don't want to say be irreverent, but question the solemnity that surrounds a lot of the television and radio institution. And to play with that solemnity in a way, and not to disrespect it, but just to deconstruct it somewhat, has been something that you've always done in your work. What has it been like when you, for example, get asked to host the Logie Awards, which is our big TV night of nights? It's the big awards show, and you are pitching ideas at the network. And what's the look on their faces? And what are some things that they said, that can't happen?
Well, look, this is about, how many years ago? It's 2001. I hosted the Logies, and I followed Andrew Denton. Andrew had followed Daryl Summers, who had done maybe 3 or 4 in a row, I think, at that point. And I think as a result of Andrew's comments about the way Daryl was hosting the Logies, they took up his challenge and said, "All right, you do it. See what happens." So Andrew had signed up to do 3, and he did 2 very, very well. But the result of Andrew doing it is that he'd torn it all down. And by the end of his 2 years, the first 2 years, there was nothing left. And he felt there was nothing else he could do. So what happened was that I was one of his writers, and he said, "Would you like to do it?" And I said, "Sure, I'll do your final year for you. I'll come in and do that." So we talked about this, and we talked about how he'd been a bit of an iconoclast and just shattered everything. And there was nothing left really but these shattered pieces of whatever you would have expected the Logies to be. So rather than come in and say effectively, "This is garbage," and we all know it's garbage, I pretended that the Logies were the most important things that you could ever hand out to any professional, that television was very important. And so it was this, rather than be sarcastic, it was a positive thing, even though we knew I was lying all the way through it. But it actually helped put the show together. And so I think we pretended that the Logies were done like the Brownlow, and that each individual TV week subscription, the little thing they used to fill in the orders, each of them was counted on stage, So we're doing things like that. But basically we were building it up and relying on the audience to reach their own conclusions about its worth, rather than saying this is nonsense. Because you got nowhere to go. If the host comes out and takes the audience by the hand and say, "Hey, come and have a look at this. It's a piece of shit," it's not good. So we've all got to pretend, and that's really what a show is that everybody's in on it. We're all going to be open to it, whatever it is, and we'll find the good in it. And the good in it, hopefully, if it's a comedian hosting the Logies, it'll be funny as a result of the fact that comedian's hosting it. So a lot of the ideas are getting back to just the one that I did, and we have to remember, Osher, that I was never asked to do it again.
No, that's fair.
There were only 2 jokes that they vetoed at Channel 9. One was that I was at one point, I think, going down the escalator at Crown Casino while Tim Costello, a renowned anti-pokies advocate, was coming up the other side, and we both waved to each other. They didn't like that joke, so that was out. It wasn't really a joke. It was just sort of a comment on casinos, I suppose. And then the other one they didn't like was a more extended sequence. I'm actually glad that they said, "Don't do this." And we were going to do it right up to the rehearsal, the last rehearsal, the tech rehearsal before the production. So it was on the Sunday of the broadcast. And it was me walking around a large round table at which were sat all the 9 executives, but for one person who wasn't really a person. It was just a mannequin with a watermelon for a head and some eyes drawn on and a smile. And I was walking around doing the speech from Untouchables by Robert De Niro as Al Capone, carrying a baseball bat. And the idea was that I would just smack the innards out of this poor fellow's head. That was the sequence. It would have probably run 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And covered most of the Channel 9 execs in watermelon. And it was suggested reasonably diplomatically that maybe I not do that for time. They were just worried about time. But I suspect it was more that A, it wasn't very funny, and B, watermelon's hard to get out of those when you're sitting next to your partner wearing a lovely cream suit,
Both of those things sound incredibly hilarious, and considering that at the time, it was, at least in Queensland where I lived at the time, stuff was happening on the footy show, the NRL footy show, that saw far more high-profile people get covered in far more, viscous liquids. It might have been maybe they might have been thinking, I don't know, we take ourselves too seriously for this kind of business, but I would have loved to see that.
Yeah, the idea is funnier than I think the execution of it would have been. I don't know if it had an ending. That was another joke that I got rid of pretty quickly. It was me coming out, I think coming out to say thank you, ladies and gentlemen, at the very, very start of the Logies, and then just to clutch my heart and collapse and then go to an ad. So the opening would have lasted like maybe 40 seconds, and basically I die. That was the idea. And we thought, no, that's ridiculous. How do you crank up again from the sitting position? It doesn't work. It doesn't build momentum. And sure enough, like it was 7 years later, Gretel comes on to host. Gretel Colleen's hosting the show. And the gag was that I think she got shot. And then she came back as a ghost for the rest of the show. That's high concept. I dips my lid. That took guts.
It's lovely. It is lovely. And I don't know how long that show is going to last. As we're recording this, it's this Sunday. Will it happen by the time this podcast airs? But my wife Audrey is a makeup artist, and when I saw the schedule, I was like, that's a bit shorter than it normally is. And she's like, there's less talent. And it's like, okay. Because there's less shows. Is there less show? I mean, is the Logie short? Logie's short. I think I think I've trimmed it down to 3.5 hours, which is pretty good.
Yeah. Look, I wonder whether it will sustain. Is that too cynical? Are people interested in television in the way that you and I might be?
No, not at all. No, look, Shaun, you and I were nominated for a Gold Logie together. I went from Gold Logie nomination to unemployment. Like
That's right, we were.
I did 3 weeks or 4 weeks on Dancing with the Stars with you, and that's the only TV work I've done in 3 years.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, isn't it, from the Gold Logie nominee that doesn't win?
Yeah, it sure is. But it's caused me to do work on some interesting things, and push me to try to find other things that I can do. It's a good,
I've been doing that. I've been looking around for since Mad as Hell finished, which was on the ABC for 11 years. I had you have a good run, and then you by choice or design look around to see how else you can fold the bit of paper that you are. What interesting shape can you come up with?
Yeah. But I never got a law degree like you. I never actually went to the university. Then I don't have the piece of paper. I don't have the second job. There's nothing else.
Do you think that would help you? Do you think if you had a degree that would make any difference?
Because I don't know how to do anything else. If I knew how to do something else, I might be all right. But I don't know how to do anything else.
Well, I couldn't go back to the law. It's not like I could get any comfort because I once practiced law or had a law degree. I mean, the only thing I know how to do is what I have done, which is be on television and hopefully be funny. So, I mean, I suspect that it'll come a point where I'm not interested in doing that anymore, but it's the only thing I can do. So I'll just continue to do it. It's like a spider spinning a web when they can no longer produce a web. They still go through the motions.
I was having a chat yesterday with a friend. He's a commercial director, and just kind of talking about that. I have a set of skills that I had learned, but they're all laid upon the person that I am. It's just a version of me that is the product. And that's really weird to think about my worth when work doesn't come my way. It's hard, Shaun.
I suppose, you and I may well have a lot in common, but one of the things that we don't share is that I guess I can make my own work.
Yeah.
Like I can write something and I can maybe turn it into a TV show or whatever. And so the commodity is the thing that I make, whereas in a way you're the commodity. You are the thing that you've made. And so you are, I don't know, in a way you might actually be a bit more vulnerable than me because if someone says, I didn't like that show of something that I've done, and people say that and people come to that conclusion quite a bit, I don't ever take it personally. Like I can't ever receive that information as being something about me because it's just something that I've made. Whereas if you're the commodity, and people say no, then it cannot be taken any other way than personally.
Look, yes, I do create. I create this. I write books. I create TV shows. I pitch them, and I understand what you're saying. It's like I made a game show. I know you're doing a quiz show with your son at the moment. I made a couple of game shows. I pitched them around, and when people don't want them, it's like, okay, it's not now. It's not that it's not a good show. It's just a not now thing, and I understand that. But one of the things I was quite inspired by, and you mentioned Tim Costello before, the documentary work that you do, particularly the one you do about gambling, which is on the ABC iView right now, was A, hilarious, B, staggeringly heartbreaking. And it was so difficult to watch. But because of who you are, you made it okay. You know what I mean? You made it all right to be able to watch that kind of heartbreak. You'd never placed a bet in your life, and there you are chatting with people who literally lost everything, been to prison.
Yeah. Offering those stories to an audience that may sit in judgment of them is a very brave thing to do, and in the service of a greater goal. And so I was very grateful for the opportunity to just really sit and listen, which is, I'm not a great interviewer. I don't think it. I'm not a journalist, but I am genuinely curious about what makes us tick. And sometimes when the springs and the clockwork don't function properly, I'm curious as to how people get in that position. I've done it with faith, and I've done it with alcohol, and I've done it with now gambling. And I think at the end of the day, the object of those documentaries is to have people maybe think about something they didn't think about before. Because in Australia, we tend to inherit a lot of our attitudes and unthinkingly, and we either get them from our parents or we get them from our peers. And we never test them. We never apply critical thinking to them, and we never maybe have an opportunity in our lives to actually stop and consider some of the downside of those decisions.
What do you think that Australians get wrong about gambling addiction and people who find themselves in a situation where they are addicted?
It depends on where you sit. Like if you sit on the outside of it, I guess as I do, just sort of experiencing it for the first time, it's puzzling how people get to where they are. And I must say, going into the documentary, I just thought, like alcohol, I thought, well, if it's not working for you, just don't do it. You have agency, make a decision. But of course, life's far more complicated than that. And everyone has a different origin story with a bunch of, I think, relatable forks in the road. And you can see when someone sits and tells you a story, and when you listen to that story, you can go, oh, I can see how you got from there to there. Oh, I can see how after 2 years when you were there. Oh, I understand now. And I understand what the pokies represent to you, what escape they provide to you, what this alcohol means to you, or why you turn to it when you're feeling down, because you did it when you celebrated, and you did it when you watched sport, and you were so excited, and you were happy, and you were younger, and it reminds you of that. And I get, we're a whole bunch of toggles and switches, and there's a fatal combination every now and again. But I must say, the most recent one, the gambling one, was the one that affected me most personally, not because I had any skin in the game, but because I really couldn't understand how such a predatory group of Australians who run companies that prey on, for them, a problem gambler is somebody who wins. And it's far easier for their algorithm to determine who that is and then exclude them from the game than it is to actually use the algorithm perhaps to weed out somebody who is in trouble. And I struggled with finding an ending to the documentary series. There were 3 episodes, 1 hour long, and we were trying to record it before we'd actually finished it. I actually had to wait till we shot everything we possibly could, and I just went out. I live in Williamstown, and I went out and looked out over Hobson's Bay next to a gnarled old tree, and just stood there for a moment. I said, no, I think I'm ready. And so we started the camera, and it came around, and I actually just talked to the camera, honestly and genuinely, in a way that I've never done before, because usually it's processed and mediated through jokes. And so you're kind enough to watch it, but I think you might have noticed that the very last moment was probably very different from the rest of the
Oh, yes. Oh, I saw that
season.
shot. I'm terrible to watch television with. And when I saw that shot lining up, I was like, hang on, something's happening here. And because of the way it was delivered, it was extraordinary and so honest. And so it was one of the most connected, authentic pieces of reflective monologue I've ever seen in a documentary because of, and the way you described it just then, it makes sense why it felt like you were just speaking so from the heart after having sat with people, cried as people were discussing with you how they had lost so much. And I could see the struggle within you trying to figure out, I can't understand how this is okay.
I just couldn't work out how people wouldn't help somebody up if they saw them in trouble, you know. And that's a Pollyanna way of looking at life. And you know, there's ample evidence that people don't help people up when they fall over. But anyway, I just thought, well, given we're a community, and it's really interesting to see what's happening with the current debate and discussion around reform and the strength of opinion and the strength of feeling. And it's not even necessarily for some people an intellectual exercise, although it can be, and it's quite helpful to make it an intellectual exercise, but just it doesn't feel right. And as a community, it doesn't feel right that we allow it to continue in the way that it is.
Decoupling profit from addiction has to happen. It is beyond what cigarettes was. It really is. Because there, at least with cigarettes, there was a point of sale intervention where you couldn't give it to a 10-year-old. But you can give a phone with got games on it which are designed to hook a young brain in well beyond their ability to put it down or make a decision to stop using it. You can give that product to a child and have their dopamine system get dysregulated within not even many hours of using it, to the point where they start to exhibit really terrible personality traits that cause ongoing problems for the rest of their lives. And these are legal products.
Yeah.
I can't understand how that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a perfect storm because you have that cloud, and then you also have the other cloud of gambling addiction being a really peculiar form of addiction because it's the only one that promises an out. Like you can't, if you're addicted to alcohol, you don't think, hey, if I just have one more scotch, that'll cure me. I'll be fine.
Oh my God,
but you do with a bet. You do think, oh my God, I'm $100,000 in the hole. One more and I'll be fine. Because
this multi pays off.
Yeah. So I can't think of any other addiction that has the implied solution within its grip, and so it requires some very special attention. And because also the other thing is, it is such a small percentage of our population that has that propensity for addiction, but we all end up, if you want to look at it in a transactional way or a mercenary way, we all end up paying for it. But I think on a very personal and human level, we also go, hey, you know what? This is a vulnerable section of the community. We probably owe it to our humanity to go and help. With gambling, and even with alcohol and drug addiction, there's a tendency to go, well, this is your problem of your own. This is a problem of your own making because there's a bunch of decisions that have led you to this difficulty that you're in. So, yeah, we have to tease out some of that before we feel as sympathetic or as empathetic.
Yeah. But I would argue that in itself is a falsehood. Now, I mean, I've got a dog in the fight. I'm 16 years sober, and I've spent a lot of time in recovery and listening to stories of people who are in recovery and people who've been addicted to things. And some people need very, very little time at all exposed to that product for their own willpower to be completely useless. Yeah. And it's no longer a choice. The way that the brain works around addiction, it's no longer a choice they're making. They simply can't not do it. I would know sooner. The way I would describe it to you, Shaun, is if you were being bitten by a mosquito, and I said, "Don't swat it, and you're like, "But the pain is immense." Yes, don't swat it and don't scratch the bite. You're just going to have to be with that. Like at some point, you're going to do that, but you can't not do it.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to suggest it.
No, I agree with you. And if you spend time with a spirit, another person who can tell you that story, then your attitude will change. But for most people, particularly with gambling addiction, it's something that's happening to somebody else. But increasingly, I think we all know somebody. It's not too many degrees of separation for us to know somebody, a family whose son or daughter is running into these troubles, or you find out that for 10 years this person you knew was had a dreadful gambling problem, and that's the reason I had to give them $100 that time, to get them out of a fix for that week.
And that's the really tricky part about gambling is with booze, people notice. With drugs, people notice. With eating disorders, people notice. With gambling, it's really, it can happen without anybody. That's how super accounts get drained. That's how, bank fraud happens, because you can look at them and they just seem fine.
Yeah. It only makes sense in retrospect, the
Yeah,
problem, you go, oh, okay, that adds up, but you don't have the benefit of hindsight in the moment.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you made it, and I hope it does inform some people when it comes to making choices around the next election, because I think that'll definitely be one of the things we're going to have a look at as we move forward. I've got a little bit of time left with you, so I did want to ask. Sitting backstage, I've got to say this, when people ask how was Dancing with the Stars, and I say, well, look, maybe one day when an NDA has lapsed, I'll tell you what it was like to be non-network talent on a Channel 7 reality show. But one of the things I just adored about that was I'm going to sit around this set all day waiting for my time to go on. And that's fine, because what I get to do is sit on a couch opposite Shaun Micallef, and that he's going to say, so, did you see the thing that happened in Ukraine? And Zelensky said this, what do you think? And then you're locked in. And you better have an answer, because Shaun doesn't sit there with fingering a phone all day. Shaun wants to know what you think, and you're going to go for it. And I was exhausted at the end of each day, not just from the physicality, but from the conversations I had with you, which was some of the most delightful hours of my life, Shaun. I'm really grateful.
That's great. Osher, I too enjoyed my time talking to you. You were often in a kind of inflatable bag of ice.
Yes,
soothing your hips, as I recall.
That's correct.
So you were the perfect audience. So you couldn't leave the room.
Couldn't go anyway, precisely. But one of the things you were telling me about was this idea of almost like a Forrest Gumpian kind of vampire that goes through the history and meets people. And there's nothing I like more than hearing someone pitch an idea and then a little while later going, "Oh, far out! There it is. That book is published," and that's so lovely. It's so lovely. You wrote this book about this vampire who goes through time and meets the Elephant Man, meets Henry Ford. What a delight to make that happen.
I tested all the ideas out on you, and the ones you laughed at, I included in the book.
Ripper. Well, that is good. That is good. Because you've got this new book coming out, which I'm probably not going to get a chance to talk to you about. The new book's about Matthew Flinders, but which I do want to speak to you about. But what do you like about writing the fiction versus the kind of more editorially kind of historical stuff?
Well, look, I think, again, when I finished Mad as Hell, I wanted to do the opposite of Mad as Hell, I guess, just to see what else I could do, or whether I'd magically develop the ability to do other things. I have no reason to expect that would be the case, but so really, Dancing with the Stars was probably the most opposite thing I could think of. And then writing a novel, I have written before, but I've never written a novel. I've written a novella. I think I was 2 words off it being a novel. So I just thought, if I just get 2 more words, and so the vampire one qualified as a novel, and I loved doing that. And again, that's a very different thing to working collaboratively with a lot of people on, say, Mad as Hell, or even Dancing with the Stars, something I can do by myself, and then eventually it becomes the readership's book. You give it to somebody else and it's saying, "What do you think?" So it's a long setup, 2 years, and then a punchline. You don't hear the audience laugh because there's no audience per se. You can only hope for the best. The history book that's coming out at the end of September is genuine. It's a researched book. It's a true account of Matthew Flinders' life and his circumnavigation of Australia and how he got there and what happened afterwards. His life struck me as funny and a fit subject for somebody like me to deal with. And the other thing is, there's been a lot of books written about our colonial past, and I think anybody can do it. I don't think you necessarily need to be, as long as you've researched it and you know exactly what you're talking about. Look, Tony Abbott wrote a history book. Anybody can write a history book. And he wrote a very successful one. So he's been my inspiration. I think, well, hey, look, yes, he's a Rhodes Scholar, and I got a University of Adelaide law degree, but I reckon I could easily rub spines with him in a bookshop.
What was it about Matthew Flinders that made you go, this is the guy? Was it that he named Australia, but not many people know it, or he had a habit of collecting human skulls because he was into phrenology? I mean, what was it?
Well, all those things came as a result of the research. I guess the thing that attracted me to him was that he'd circumnavigated Australia he made this great, he thought he was going to get this huge reward. He thought the empire would knight him. He would be the equivalent of Captain Cook, you know. Be careful what you wish for, though, because, you know, if statues had been erected in the way that they were for Cook, then they would probably be torn down today. So, you know, maybe he's lucky. Maybe he got off lightly. But anyway, he's on his way home. And this is during the, you know, the French and the English weren't getting on terribly well. He went around Australia in the Investigator. That was the name of the ship that he
I like a thing that does what it says on the box. That's a good name for a boat.
But then it was so full of holes, he couldn't get back home to England. So he got another ship called the Cumberland, had one built for him. It was a very small ship. And there were these little passports that the English and the French gave each other for explorers so that they wouldn't be caught up in the war. They were exemptions, and that was great. It was a very nicely thing. Joseph Banks arranged those, and everyone was very happy. Anyway, so he's on his way back. Because it's a small ship, he's got to stop for water a bit more often than he would have otherwise. He stopped at Mauritius, which was a French colony, prison colony. And he got some water, and yes. Would you like to come to dinner, says the governor, the French governor. No, I've got to go. Oh, okay, all right, okay. Yeah. Can I have a look at your passport? Yeah, sure, here's my passport. Ah, yes, the Investigator. The Investigator. And you're in a boat called the Cumberland. Yes. This doesn't apply to your boat. You're arrested. So he spent 6 years in prison. He wanted to get back, get his maps out, you know, show his circumnavigation, blah, blah, blah. He was 6 years too late. The French got theirs out beforehand because they were circumnavigating Australia the other way. And South Australia, which we referred to, this is a beautiful callback, South Australia was originally called Napoleon Land.
Yes.
And had it not been for the eventual acceptance of Matthew Flinders' work, in other words, if he hadn't got out of prison and back to England, South Australia would be called Napoleon Land to this day.
It's why we still have La Perouse just down the road.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
In Sydney.
Absolutely.
It's a famous place that people ride their bicycles to, people like me. That is brilliant. But if the real great gag about all of that, wasn't Flinders like obsessed with the story of Robinson Crusoe?
He loved Robinson Crusoe. He did. He got that book as a kid. I don't think he realised it was a satire, but he did circumnavigate Australia with his own man Friday, I guess. Or so he thought. A fellow called Bungari, and he had him by his side. He was there as a translator, because I think in those days he just assumed that, oh well, this First Nations gentleman will be able to speak the language of every First Nations person we come across. And of course, 10 kilometres up the coast, completely different language. And Bungari, to his credit, just faked it. Oh yeah, he did some mind.
So good.
Yeah, so that's a funny story too, I think, and that's interesting, and also very telling that we have many statues of Flinders and his cat, but not too many of somebody who actually helped him. Probably saved his life a few times.
What do you think? And it's a tricky time, and it's a touchy. So, you know, as Dr. Frankenfurter said to Brad Majors, that's a rather tender subject. What do you think Australians have to gain by being brave and examining our colonial history for what it is? Because we're pretty reluctant when it gets to the grisly bits.
Yeah. I was concerned about I didn't want to be suddenly treating a period of history in a trivializing way, but equally I didn't want to be tiptoeing around it if I was being robust and satirical about the way things are told. The book is as much a satire on history books as it is an actual history book. And we did, you know, in this case, I think it's the first time I've ever had a sensitivity read of a particular book because of the subject matter involved. And I think there's stuff that you wouldn't find in this book. Sorry, there's stuff that you wouldn't find in other books about this subject. And if you like Mad as Hell, then this book is a kind of historical treatment via Mad as Hell. So Mad as Hell was about topical things. This is about historical things, and it approaches it it acknowledges that the solemnity that perhaps other books would give certain subjects, but it has some fun with it. It's irreverent, I suppose, without being disrespectful.
There's a very important thing there that the role of humour plays when it comes to dealing with difficult stuff. It's like jokes about sick children are funny. If you're a doctor, a joke about a sick child is funny because sick children aren't funny. But you need that as a release valve so you can talk to another doctor about what's going on. Because if you just talked about that the whole time, you would just melt. So having a bit of humor in there can it go around a bias or go around a reactionary thing as, oh, no, you can't talk about that. But it allows us to perhaps face as a nation, maybe one day we could face as a nation a reckoning of what it is that happened so our country can be the great country that it is. Because I really feel this, Shaun. We still don't really think greatly of ourselves because we have this internal shame that we aren't ready to face in many ways.
Not all of us have that shame. I mean, there's a sort of paralysis that might come if you choose to view our history through a left lens or a right lens. Then there might be some paralysis on the left about, and you don't do anything, which is just as bad as being bullish on the right, which is going, well, these so-called crimes weren't committed by me, so therefore I'm not responsible at all. But somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the beautiful grey that occupies the middle of things is the truth and maybe the reality. And it's the book that's coming out deals with the ludicrousness of both extreme ends of each side, and if you just tell the story, then the story works, and you don't necessarily even have to have an attitude on it now that means that you couch it in a certain way. Having said that, I'm sure that it will be savagely reviewed.
Wow. And what I love about you, Shaun, is that you truly don't care.
Well,
you literally don't care. Because the work is true to who you are, and you're a good human being, and you trust in your ability to create something that is in alignment with your values. And if someone doesn't like it, it's okay. It's not for them.
Exactly. Yeah. Look, I can only look after the things I can vaguely control. And even then, I'm not entirely sure that I've got my hands on the steering wheel.
Speaking of things you can't control, I believe there was a time when we were backstage, you got a chance to meet Wolfgang, didn't you? A youngest boy?
I did. Yes, I did. Yes. I met that young fellow.
You are now, and I see you're hosting a TV show, a game show with one of your children.
Yep.
And, children, he's a giant. He's taller than you. Talking to you about parenting was insightful and delightful. What is it like, as looking now, your kids are kind of grown up now. Mm-hmm. What would you say to people about what goes on in your life when you know the kid is coming, and how your priorities change around what's going on in your life when the child's on the way, or the child comes into your life? Like in my experience, it was when I became a stepfather. What would you say to people about how those things change, and how you identify with yourself might shift and change?
Yeah, well, it might depend how old you are when that opportunity arises. But for me, insofar as I was 36 when we had our first child, and I guess I'd wrestled as best as a 36-year-old can, trying to work out what the meaning of life was, or at least the meaning of my life. And I think instinctively you tend to put yourself in the center of whatever you're doing. You go, well, then life seems to be about career, I guess, in terms of defining yourself as a certain thing. But as soon as you realize that another generation is coming along as a result of something you've decided to do, which is start a family, you suddenly go, oh, okay, well, I'm relegated. Instinctively, you go, oh, okay, yeah, this is life's. What I'm supposed to do is not about me. What I'm supposed to do is make sure this little person grows up with the skill set to be able to cope with things. And hopefully each generation is an improvement. I think each parent is aware that I'm going to make this opportunity, the opportunities in the life of my child, better than maybe I had for myself. I think there are huge, massive jumps between my parents' generation and me. And certainly I know they gave me opportunities that they were denied themselves. And I'm hopeful that, not to the same extent, I don't think, because, life's pretty easy here in Australia. But if you come from overseas, as my father did after the Second World War, who was simply delighted to see some food in the shops, it doesn't take much to make a massive difference. So I can't give my children that generational gift the way that he did. But yeah, you try and make things a bit better, I guess is what I'm saying. And you realize that you're a bit player, I guess, in a larger story. And eventually, when grandchildren come along, because I mean, I watch my children are not even living home now, you know, they've moved out and they're very much their own people. And sometimes I see them do things or hear them say things, and I think, wow, where did that come from? I can't think of anything I did or said that influenced that particular way of thinking or acting. And by that stage, of course, you realize you're not even a bit player anymore. You are pretty much an extra, you know, or you're not even allowed on set anymore. You're done. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be as a parent. I think that your job is to equip them as best you can with the ability to handle that transition between innocence and maturity, you know, because innocence is lovely when they're young, but you don't want them to be naive adults. So eventually they need to see the real world as it is instead of the world you've created for them.
And then one day the executive producer of their life calls you up and says, look, really great, but we've chosen to go in another direction.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the best way to get told no. And off it, and then it just starts happening without you.
Yeah, yeah. As it should.
Yeah.
And if you're comfortable with that, it's not such a bad lesson to apply to other things in your life too, as you go, okay, I had a good summer, you know, I enjoyed myself. I was very lucky to have the 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is in terms of career. But you realize that there are other more important things in your life that define who you are than your work or anything to do with you individually.
Yeah. I was saying just this morning to somebody that every time when we walk into school and he's holding my hand, because I remember what it was like when G one day just decided she didn't want a story in bed at night anymore, and that was it. We didn't know the night before had been the last night we'd ever do it, right?
Yeah.
And so every morning when we're crossing the street on the way to school and he's holding my hand, I make a choice to go, this is one of the last times this happened. There are numbers on this. I don't know what they are, but there are numbers that are counting down here.
Yeah.
And just try to enjoy that little moment of him reaching for me, because one day it won't happen.
Yeah.
And
if they're still
that'd
doing
be good.
If he's still doing it when he's 30, yeah, I would sit down and have a talk to him.
I might have a talk to myself. Mr. Micallef, you took an hour out of your day to do this on a show day. I'm incredibly thankful for. Enjoy being Alexander tonight, and I really hope you make the second curtain next door.
All right, I'll be there. I'll wave to you notionally in the audience.
You're a gem. Yeah, the best ever. And oh gosh, I should say we're doing so Story Club, that little show you went and came and did.
Oh yeah.
We're doing our third, and like they've been selling out. So there's our third in a row that's selling out now. So I might try and come and bring it down to Melbourne for the Comedy Fest, because it's working really well. And I often tell the story about your one as to why people should buy a ticket, because I'm like, you don't understand. Micallef came and did it once, but he had a proviso that the story never made it out of the room.
Yeah.
And it was one of the greatest things I've ever heard.
Wow.
And they're like, oh, so yeah, it happens usually about once a show. We have 6 storytellers every show. One of them will be like, no, that's just for the room. And it's just something fan-fucking-tastic about that in a time where everything's recorded, reheard, you can watch the webinar later, whatever. It's like, no, you actually have to be there. And you can't record it.
It was about Peter Dutton, and no one knows who he is anymore.